You don't have to change the slides because there are no slides. I'm the slide. So, this is an advancement in technology, ladies and gentlemen. This morning, is the first talking slide. Can I talk now? You might say, so how oh, they want the lungs back. What's going on up here? Just my wife, it's not calling, she's right there. Anyway, there are a couple of interesting factors regarding what I'm going to talk to you about and what you've just heard. And the common thread is friends and friendship. And it's kind of interesting to listen to Phil, especially about being a cattleman to cattleman and being a doctor and a surgeon to surgeons, because I'm a pediatric surgeon. So every time I'm with the surgeons, I'm the damn pediatrician, and every time I'm with the pediatricians, I'm the damn surgeon. So it is interesting how you can actually uncross those wires occasionally. The real issue, though, is that, Alan has his football, and Phil has his cattle, and David has his horses. I got IPF. That was not my hobby, nor is my hobby getting lung transplants. I was flying high also, and lots of things happened which we didn't expect. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell you my story, and then I'm going to tell you about 2 miracles and 2 awakenings from the perspective of a busy surgeon. So the real problem is that idiopathic pulmonary fibrosis kills 140,000 Americans a year. Most people don't know they have it, and I was one of those. I discovered that I had it on the day after Father's Day in 2014 when it was going to be yet another typical week, and that I was getting up early, making rounds, checking the babies, heading to the airport, flying to Washington, attending the Surgical Quality Alliance, flying back home, a big schedule the next day, and on and on and on, just like everybody else. Only problem is I was wheezing and short of breath. That was a real problem because I'm not an asthmatic. So obviously didn't make the trip, and my internist said, well, maybe it's pollen or something like that, put me on some steroids and an inhaler. 1 week later, no more wheezing, still short of breath, and then a multi-jillion-dollar workup that included the world's ugliest CTA of the chest, which demonstrated where there used to be lungs, there was nothing but Swiss cheese and honeycomb. That's bad. And so it was kind of a situation where I said, all right, you're otherwise in good shape, and I was, and you have this, so we're going to start you on this new drug, just coming off of clinical trials, that will stop the fibrosis or at least slow it down, so hopefully we can reconstruct a little bit of your physiologic reserve. So you've all seen Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, and you all remember when Newman and Redford are on the cliff running from the guys that are chasing them, and they're going to jump off the cliff into the river, and Redford says he can't swim. And Newman says, don't worry about it, the fall is going to kill you. Well, I kind of felt like where I was halfway down the cliff and someone tossed me a parachute. And I wasn't really likely that this was going to work out well. But I went home, I was on medical leave, I was put on oxygen, I immediately upregulated my surgical engineer genes and figured out a way of using about 1 million feet of oxygen tubing so that I could go anywhere in the house. We told the grandchildren that Grandpa was studying to be an astronaut, so they weren't too freaked out by this. And essentially, I sat back and realized that I had been put in a cage with a disease that was going to gradually strangle me. Then I discovered that I had the advanced variety, and in 3 weeks, I went from that status to that old Gomer that we all remember in medical school who couldn't brush his teeth without getting out of breath. So off I go to the Mayo Clinic. My pulmonologist had trained there. The Mayo Clinic in Jacksonville is a transplant center, the only transplant center. I got admitted, and I can remember vividly my discussion with my pulmonologist, who basically, in so many words said, I'm either going to go out of here in a wheelchair with a Mayo swag bag or on a gurney with a toe tag. I had 3 things going against me. Number 1, I was older than the cutoff, but I was in great physical condition, not a problem. Number 2, I was a physician. Number 3, I was a surgeon. And I said, listen, I am going to prove to you that surgeons can be good patients. And he basically looked at me in a funny way, and to this day, John Hanks still thinks that's probably the first sign that I was losing my mind. However, that brings us to the two miracles and the awakenings. Miracle number one. From the moment I saw that really ugly CTA and thinking to myself, because I'm the CMIO, oh man, we've got the numbers crossed, that can't possibly be me. Yes, it was. To that point, my bride of then 43 years was there, as were my children, to take care of me. We all take care of others. This was the opportunity, if you want to call it that all of a sudden I needed care. I needed to turn my well-being and trust over to the people that I loved and the people that I had confidence in. And that experience, the other side of the knife, is truly unique, especially if you're graced with the kind of people who are part of my life and my family. So that miracle really exploded when I was admitted to Mayo, because from all around the world, cards, letters, notes, people that I had known briefly, people that I had known, just a little bit, different fire rescue people from around the world, monks in Ireland, Hindu prayers in India, all sending this sense of prayer and goodwill. And that really was where I quickly recognized that that is indeed the presence of God. Now, I will tell you, I am an Irish Catholic who practices and was trained by the Jesuits, so I got all the religion. And I can remember telling my son when he went through the usual issues of questioning religion when he was growing up, I said, I see the hand of God around me every day, especially in the children that I take care of. I said, as a matter of fact, in the operating room, I get the tissue close together. God heals and I bill. So it's a good relationship. And clearly, the presence of everybody suddenly reaching out to you is indeed that manifestation of God's love. So that to me was miracle number one. Miracle number two, admitted 11:30 a.m. Wednesday, listed noon Friday, lung donor available Sunday night. 2 days. That's a miracle. There's no other way of saying it. So I'm laying in bed with every oxygenation device known to man on me. I look like one of those losers that we're watching on the Olympics. And Gene's next to me, and we're watching 60 Minutes, and the pulmonologist comes in and he says, do you mind if I turn off the TV? And I'm thinking to myself, uh-oh. This is either going to be really good or really bad. Gene immediately is thinking, okay, they're here to tell me they're going to intubate him. I'm thinking, now what? And he says, we have found a donor. Then the question that is forever burned in my life, in my brain. Are you interested? No, I never swing at the first pitch. What else you got out there? Let's run the inventory. Is it going to fit properly? That began the next part of the story, and that's what then led to the two awakenings. So off I go to the operating room and undergo the transplant. And we had a few events that we're not going to go into now. That it's the result of a surgeon getting operated on by surgeons, but be that as it may. It led to the first awakening. Forever and a day, like practically, I'm sure everybody in this room, I have been a huge proponent for organ donation. I am an organ donor, but now I'm an organ recipient. And to see and to literally understand and to feel the compassion and the love and the devotion that young man made when he signed a paper a few years ago, because he wasn't that old, he was 24. To see it from the other side really makes you appreciate the depth of human compassion and the fact that human compassion and human behavior defaults to kindness. So that was just an experience that was clearly different on the other side of the knife. And that then brings us to the last awakening. So, I was in good shape, and despite a few setbacks and interesting things, I was on track. I had, David talks about training horses. I had 4 trainers. They were the pulmonologists at the Mayo Clinic, Turns out I was on course to set the record for the entire Mayo institutions to have the fastest recovery from a double lung transplant. And they were desperate to get me out, and they did. So I think I still hold the record by an hour. But I went home. I have been with the University of Florida for 35 years. I have played every position on the team, from associate dean to associate cook and bottle washer. Did that on Pancake Day for Miracle Telethon. And I have always been fascinated by the fact that you can build a $100 million hospital and fill it with every bed that is the most uncomfortable device that man has ever created. And so I was really happy to get home. And my bride of now 46 years probably remembers we walked into the bedroom and I looked at the bed and I went, finally, I'm going to be able to sleep in a comfortable bed. Then I looked at the phone next to the bed and I said to myself, that's not going to ring at night anymore. I said, she's gone. The mistress is gone. Because that's the other thing. We all have our mistress, that jealous mistress of medicine. You can be anywhere. You can be on vacation, you can be sailing, you can be doing 1,000 different things, partying, but in the back of your mind, you are always worried about the duodenostomy on baby Brown, or whether the child in the PICU is getting a good foster home because he's battered. It's always there. And all of a sudden I realized, as this part of my life was ending, the magnitude of the size of our life that we spend, and we have to, no, don't misunderstand me here, all of a sudden that's given back. And all of a sudden I realize what an opportunity it is to fill that void with the gift of increased time, increased enjoyment, increased love, increased interaction with those I love and those who love me. So it's kind of fascinating because that gets us back to the miracles. And that gets us back to the issue of having the ability to have individuals around you with whom you can interact and who are obviously part of your life and part of your family. It's kind of fascinating because, as I said, the human psyche clearly defaults to kindness. And I think as we go forward and realize that the things that we do, which we take for granted, are profound on the patients upon whom we do them. And while I might say that if you're a surgeon and you want to know what it's like to be on the other side of the knife, pick a smaller procedure. But the reality of it is, I don't think any of us are going to get in the draft of this year's NFL. And you already heard from Phil how complex it is to become a cattle baron. And we already know that it has been Dave's life avocation. But this kind of experience may hit any one of us. And understanding how much people love us and how much we depend on that love makes us better physicians. So thank you, and yes, I am delighted to be here.